I drove for 2 hours to get home, carrying an expensive bottle of wine as a party gift. The highway stretched endlessly under the gray December sky, and my fingers cramped around the steering wheel of my beat-up sedan. Although I had moved out and was living in a rented one-bedroom apartment far away, the moment I stepped through the door of the Henderson estate, the label of youngest daughter was immediately stripped away to be replaced by the sign, servant. My mother, Alara, took the gift bag from my hand before I could even set down my purse. She didn't say thank you. Her eyes swept over me as if I were a late delivery driver, someone whose presence was expected but not particularly welcome. Go to the kitchen, the prime rib isn't roasted yet. My back hurts too much, she said, then turned her back and walked away, her silk blouse swishing as she disappeared into the living room. My stomach twisted. I hadn't even taken off my coat. Christmas Eve began not with laughter, but with a stifling silence in the kitchen. The enormous slab of prime rib sat on the counter, still partially wrapped in butcher paper. I tied on the apron that hung on its familiar hook, the same one I'd worn since I was 16 and got to work. Season the meat, preheat the oven to 450 degrees, sear it, lower the temperature. Check the thermometer. Through the cracked door, I saw the whole family, Father Thaddeus, Mother Ilara, Sister Serafina, and Brother Caspian, sitting in the candlelit dining room. The warm glow of the chandelier made everything look like a scene from a holiday magazine. They were raising glasses of wine, sharing slices of the fragrant roasted prime rib that I had prepared, their laughter filtering through the doorway like music I wasn't invited to hear. Meanwhile, I stood alone by the cold kitchen table, checking the pecan pie one last time. The crust had turned golden brown, perfectly crimped edges that had taken me 20 minutes to get just right. They had started the feast without even caring if I was present or not. When the timer finally went off and I pulled the pie from the oven, I heard the scrape of silverware on plates, the murmur of satisfied conversation. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked out to the dining table. My seat welcomed me with a harsh truth. On my plate were not the delicious cuts of prime rib I had poured my heart into roasting. It was just the small, burnt edges, lying pitifully next to a bit of mashed potatoes, the leftovers, remaining after my family had picked clean the best parts. The meat was tough and charred black on one side, the kind of piece you'd normally throw away. My throat tightened. Serafina was cutting into a thick pink center cut, the juice running onto her plate. Caspian had piled his plate high with 3 slices. My father was chewing slowly, nodding with satisfaction. My mother glanced at me, her voice cold. Eat fast so you can clean up. I want to watch a movie at 8 o'clock. I picked up my fork. The burnt meat was tough and bitter. I hurriedly ate that meager amount of food in 5 short minutes, tears threatening to spill, but I forced myself to swallow them back. The mashed potatoes stuck in my throat like paste. Nobody asked me how work was going. Nobody asked about my drive. Nobody wished me Merry Christmas. After the meal, they moved to the living room to watch a movie, leaving me with the battlefield. Plates smeared with gravy and fat, wine glasses with lipstick stains, crumpled napkins. I cleared the table, stacked the dishes in the sink, planning to wash them after the movie. The kitchen was a disaster, pots and pans everywhere, the counter splattered with grease. I carefully arranged 5 forks and 5 of Alara's special Christmas dessert plates, white glazed porcelain with red and green polka dots, onto a serving tray. She'd bought them last year and made it very clear that nobody was allowed to use them except for special occasions. I divided the pecan pie into 5 portions as evenly as possible, measuring each slice with my eye, making sure nobody could complain that someone got more than someone else. I scooped a scoop of vanilla ice cream onto each slice, watching it begin to melt into the warm pie. The tray was heavy. My arms shook slightly as I carried it out. The living room was dark except for the glow of the television. A romantic comedy played on the screen, and I could hear the canned laughter from the TV speakers. They'd arranged themselves on the sectional sofa, my father in his recliner, my mother stretched out on the chaise, Serafina and Caspian sprawled across the middle. I distributed the dessert to each person, careful not to block anyone's view of the screen. My father took his plate without looking at me. My mother did the same. Caspian grabbed his with one hand, eyes glued to his phone. When I brought the cake plate in front of my sister Serafina, she was still glued to her phone screen, her thumb scrolling through Instagram. Her hand waved dismissively to take it, but her eyes never left the screen. Sarah, here's your... Crash! The pecan pie with cold ice cream fell upside down onto the floor and the rug. The white plate with the cheerful red and green polka dots shattered into 3 large pieces. Ice cream splattered across the Persian rug, the one my mother had paid $3,000 for last spring. My heart stopped. "Oh my goodness, Heidi!" Serafina shrieked, jerking her feet up onto the sofa, but she didn't apologize. Instead of apologizing, Serafina just lifted her feet high, jerking her chin to signal me to clean it up. Her hand never left her phone, while the other casually reached for another plate of cake on the tray I was holding. So, this Christmas, I wouldn't get to eat dessert either. "I'll get something to clean this up," I whispered. Nobody responded. I went back to the kitchen to get a rag and the dustpan. My hands were shaking as I wet the cloth under the faucet. When I returned, I knelt down on the floor, my knees pressing into the soft rug. As I was kneeling, diligently wiping the cream stain off the floor, still wearing the apron I hadn't had time to take off, the phone in my pocket buzzed. A Facebook notification from Caspian. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone with sticky fingers. The notification showed a new video post. I clicked it. He had just posted a 10-second video. In the video, I was wiping the floor at Serafina's feet, while she ate cake and posed mockingly, pointing down at me with her fork. The angle made it look like I was bowing, like I was some kind of servant in a period drama. Caspian captioned it, "The maid is acting deep again. Cinderella wannabe. Help is hard to find." The video already had 12 likes. I looked up. Caspian was giggling, showing the screen to Serafina. She burst out laughing, nearly choking on her pie. My mother glanced over but said nothing, her face impassive. My father, Thaddeus, took a sip of beer and called out, his voice full of condescension. "Oh, come on. She likes doing it. Heidi was born to serve. Right, daughter?" More laughter. My mother remained glued to the TV, pretending she was deaf and blind to the cruelty happening right in front of her face. The whole room burst into laughter, even the actress on the TV seemed to be laughing at me. That was the moment everything inside me shattered. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the rag at Caspian's smug face, though I desperately wanted to. Instead, I placed the dirty rag decisively onto Caspian's expensive porcelain plate that was lying flat on the rug, the one he'd set down to film me. The rag landed with a wet plop, cream and pie filling smearing across the pristine white surface. Then I walked straight upstairs. "You have to finish cleaning. You can't leave the plate on the floor like that," Serafina screamed from behind, her voice shrill with indignation. I didn't turn around. I kept walking, my footsteps heavy on the stairs. I walked past the turn of the stairs, vaguely hearing Caspian comforting her. "It's okay. She'll clean it up right away. No need to get angry like that." But I wasn't going to clean it up. Not tonight. Not ever again. I didn't go to my room to sleep. I didn't even pause at the top of the stairs. I walked straight to the guest room where I'd left my overnight bag, the bag I'd packed thinking I'd stay the night, maybe even through Christmas Day. How naive I'd been, just hours ago. I grabbed the handbag I hadn't even opened since stepping through the door and went straight out the back exit, the one that led through the mudroom. My coat was still downstairs, but I didn't care. The December air bit through my thin sweater as I crossed the driveway. I started my beat-up old car, a 2008 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, and drove straight to Aunt Rowena's house, which was an hour away. My hands were shaking on the wheel, but not from the cold. From rage, from humiliation, from the sudden, crystalline clarity of what my life had become. The highway was dark and empty. Christmas lights twinkled in the windows of houses I passed. Normal families. Happy families. Families where the youngest daughter wasn't the help. By the time I pulled into Aunt Rowena's driveway, it was nearly 10 o'clock. The porch light was on, and I could see the warm glow of their Christmas tree through the front window. Uncle Silas opened the door before I could even knock. He must have seen my headlights. Seeing my state and the bag in my hand, he didn't ask long-winded questions, but simply said the warmest sentence I had ever heard. "Come in. We have eggnog." I burst into tears right there on the doorstep. Aunt Rowena appeared behind him, her face creased with concern. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and pine, and I sobbed into her shoulder while Uncle Silas quietly took my bag. They didn't press me for details. They sat me down on their couch, wrapped me in a fleece blanket, and put a mug of spiked eggnog in my hands. The Christmas tree lights blurred into soft reds and greens and golds through my tears. "When you're ready," Aunt Rowena said softly, squeezing my hand. I told them everything. The burnt meat, the dropped pie, the video, my father's words, the laughter. Uncle Silas's jaw tightened. Aunt Rowena's eyes filled with tears. "I knew Alara was cold," she said quietly, "but I didn't realize it had gotten this bad." "She's always been this way," I whispered. I just kept thinking that if I tried harder, if I was more helpful, maybe she'd—" My voice broke. "Maybe she'd love me." "Oh, sweetheart." Aunt Rowena pulled me close again. "This isn't about you. This has never been about you." That night, in the small, peaceful guest room at my aunt's house, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every humiliation. Every time I'd been treated like I didn't matter. Every time I'd swallowed my pride and my hurt, because I thought that's what family meant. Finally, at 2 a.m, I opened my laptop. It was time to face reality. The Henderson family believed they had me under their thumb thanks to a joint account opened when I was 16. My mother had insisted on it, for emergencies, she'd said, "so we can help you if you need it." But the help had only ever flowed one direction. I'd been depositing my paychecks there for years, dutifully transferring money for the utility bills, the groceries, the random expenses my mother claimed she couldn't cover. But they were wrong if they thought that was all I had. I was no longer that naive little girl who believed everything her mother told her. 3 years ago, I had secretly opened a high-yield savings account at a completely different bank, kept strictly confidential. Every bonus I'd earned, every overtime payment, every tax refund, it all went there. Money my family knew nothing about. The screen displayed the number, $28,400 in the secret account. I stared at that number for a long time. $28,400. It had taken me 3 years of scrimping and saving, of saying no to dinners out with coworkers, of driving my beat-up car instead of buying something newer. Every dollar represented a choice, a sacrifice, a future I was building for myself. I switched tabs to the joint account where I usually left about $2,000 to pay utility bills for the family. Current balance, $0. I had just executed the transaction to withdraw every cent of my contribution. I'd done it in the car, sitting in Aunt Rowena's driveway, my fingers flying over my phone screen. Transfer all funds, confirm. Done. $2,000 back in my control. When the clock on my laptop confirmed it was nearly 3 a.m., I checked my phone one last time. Perhaps at home, everyone had finished enjoying their movie night and the pecan pie with vanilla ice cream. My screen lit up with a text from Mom, sent hours ago. "What are you doing? Why aren't the dishes washed?" A second text followed. "Heidi, this is unacceptable. Come downstairs right now." It seemed no one knew I had left. Perhaps Mom still thought I was the weak little girl, the Cinderella who would meekly go downstairs to clean up after everyone was asleep, too afraid of conflict to do anything but comply. Thinking of that, my heart wrenched. Had I really lived a life of endurance like that? The answer was obvious. Yes, for years. But tonight, in Aunt Rowena's room, wrapped in a borrowed nightgown and sitting in the glow of my laptop screen, I knew Cinderella was dead. There was only Heidi, the person holding the reins of her own finances, the person who'd had enough. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning's peace was shattered by the buzzing of my phone. I turned it back on to check the time, and immediately the messages flooded in. Mom's text, sent at 7 a.m., was reproaching me for leaving disrespectfully and leaving the kitchen messy, ruining everyone's Christmas spirit. No mention of the video. No mention of what they'd done to me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Aunt Rowena made me pancakes. Uncle Silas read the newspaper and occasionally looked at me over the top of it, his eyes concerned but kind. They didn't push me to talk. They just let me be. I stayed with them for 3 days. 3 peaceful, quiet days where nobody asked me to cook or clean or serve, where I was treated like a person, not a maid. When the weekend ended, I drove back to my rented apartment, a modest 1-bedroom in a complex 40 minutes from my office. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I'd moved out 6 months ago, desperate for space, for freedom, for a life that didn't revolve around my family's needs. I was unpacking my bag when my phone buzzed. Serafina. Without a single word asking where I was, without a single word of apology, she sent a text reeking of greed. Why was the card declined at the spa? Didn't you deposit your paycheck? I need to pay $800 right now. My blood ran cold. The card, the joint account debit card that we all had access to, the account that I drained 3 days ago. I looked at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to explain, to justify, to apologize even though I'd done nothing wrong. But I didn't. I texted back, every word ice cold. That is a joint checking account, and I have withdrawn all my portion of the money. Good luck with the spa bill. I hit send and set down my phone. 5 seconds later, it started ringing. Serafina. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Then the texts started pouring in. Serafina. Are you kidding me right now? Serafina. You can't just take all the money, that's the theft. Caspian. What is wrong with you? Mom needs that money for groceries. Mom. Heidi, call me immediately. This is unacceptable and irresponsible. Dad. You're stealing from your own family. I raised you better than this. Immediately, my phone blew up with a barrage of abusive texts from the family, accusing me of being irresponsible and stealing family money. The messages came in rapid fire, one after another, each one more vicious than the last. I sat on my couch and read them all, every single one. I let the words wash over me, words like selfish and ungrateful and terrible daughter. Then I quietly blocked their numbers one by one. Serafina, blocked. Caspian, blocked. Dad, blocked. Mom. I hesitated over that one. My finger hovered over her name. Then I pressed block. The silence was deafening. That evening, around 9 p.m., I was in my pajamas, heating up leftover soup, when someone started pounding on my door. Heidi, open this door right now. My mother's voice. And Serafina's. My stomach dropped. They'd driven here. To my apartment. Serafina and Mama Lara had come to my rented apartment, and they were banging on the door loudly, screaming for me to come out and talk. We know you're in there. Your car is in the parking lot. You can't just steal from us and hide. Bang, bang, bang. I stood frozen in my kitchen, my heart hammering. The soup bubbled on the stove, forgotten. A door opened somewhere down the hall. I heard a woman's voice. Hey, people are trying to sleep. Mind your own business, Serafina shrieked. More banging. They were going to break down my door. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My mother and sister are at my apartment, banging on my door and screaming. I've asked them to leave, but they won't. I'm scared. The dispatcher was calm and professional. Are you in immediate danger? I don't know. They're very angry. They won't stop. Officers are on the way. Stay inside and don't open the door. 5 minutes later, 5 minutes of relentless pounding and screaming. I heard sirens. The banging stopped abruptly. I crept to my window and peeked through the blinds. 2 police cars. 4 officers. My mother and Serafina were on the walkway, both of them gesturing wildly, explaining something to the cops. One of the officers looked up at my apartment. I stepped back from the window. There was a knock, professional, controlled. Ma'am? Police. Can you come to the door? I opened it a crack, the chain still on. The officer was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes. Are you Heidi Henderson? Yes. Are you all right? I'm fine. I just want them to leave. He nodded. They're leaving now. We've explained that this is harassment. If they come back, call us immediately. Okay? Okay. After the police arrived and my mother and sister finally left, after confirming I was okay, the officers departed. I watched from my window as the patrol cars pulled away, their lights dark now. A few minutes later, there was another knock. Softer this time. I looked through the peephole. A woman about my age, holding a plate. I opened the door cautiously. Hi, she said, giving me a sympathetic smile. I'm Jane. I live in 3B. I heard all that commotion, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I brought cookies and hot cocoa. I burst into tears for the second time in 3 days. Jane brought over some cookies and hot cocoa for me, and we sat in my tiny living room. She didn't ask invasive questions. She just listened while I gave her the abbreviated version: family drama, Money issues, boundaries. Good for you, she said firmly, for calling the cops. That took guts. After she left, I sat alone in the dark, drinking the cocoa, eating the cookies, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt something other than hurt. I felt angry. But unable to force me to open the door, they switched to attacking my livelihood. It started 2 days later. I was at work, trying to focus on a presentation, when my work phone, buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged the company in a Facebook post. I opened it with a sense of dread. Caspian had written a long post about how his sister scammed the family and stole retirement funds, and how our company employed people with no moral character. Serafina had shared it and added her own commentary. They'd mobilized friends to flood my company's Facebook page, leaving a series of fake reviews. Employee Heidi is a scammer of her own family. Terrible character. Would never trust this company. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. There were at least 20 comments, all from people I'd never met, all saying horrible things about me. Then my desk phone rang. Heidi, can you come to conference room B, please? It was Linda from HR. My stomach dropped. The climax came the next morning. Father Thaddeus had called the company headquarters directly, fabricating a story that I stole retirement money and demanding to speak to my boss. On my first day back at work after the holidays, I was called into the meeting room by HR for a warning about letting personal matters affect the company's reputation. Linda and my manager, Stephen, sat across from me. The conference room suddenly felt very small. Heidi, Linda said carefully, we've received some concerning communications regarding you. I felt like I was going to throw up. Stephen leaned forward. Someone claiming to be your father called corporate yesterday. He made some very serious allegations about theft and fraud. And our social media has been flooded with negative comments about your character. It's not true, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. None of it is true. We're not accusing you of anything, Linda said quickly. But we need to address this. The company's reputation. I understand. My voice was hollow. A feeling of utter humiliation engulfed me. I thought I was about to collapse. These were my coworkers, my professional life. And my family had invaded it, poisoned it, tried to destroy it. We're giving you a formal warning, Stephen said, and he looked genuinely sorry. Keep your personal life separate from work. If this continues, we'll have to take further action. I nodded, unable to speak. I walked back to my desk in a daze. A few coworkers glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Did they know? Had they seen the posts? I sat down, stared at my computer screen, and felt the tears coming. While I was in despair, sitting at my desk trying not to cry, my phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Silas. Rowena and I want to help. Can you meet us for dinner tonight? There's someone I want you to meet. That evening, Uncle Silas made an appointment for me to visit the office of attorney Lysandra Vale, his high school best friend, a sharp woman specializing in handling family financial fraud cases. She's the best, Uncle Silas said as we drove to her office. If anyone can help you, it's Lysandra. The office was in a nice building downtown, all glass and steel. We took the elevator to the 7th floor. The reception area had leather chairs and abstract art on the walls. Attorney Lysandra Vale was exactly what I needed to see. She was in her early 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a crisp navy suit and shook my hand with a firm grip. Silas has told me a bit about your situation, she said, gesturing for us to sit. But I'd like to hear it from you. So I told her everything. The joint account, the years of exploitation, Christmas Eve, the video, the harassment, the attack on my job. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. Do you have documentation? She asked. Of what? The joint account, your deposits, the video, the harassment, the calls to your employer. I nodded. I have bank statements, screenshots of the texts before I blocked them. The video is still up on Facebook, and HR has a record of my father's call. A slow smile spread across Lysandra's face. Good. That's very good. After hearing the story and reviewing the evidence, I'd brought printed bank statements, screenshots on my phone, a link to Caspian's video. Attorney Lysandra was convinced we would win. This is textbook financial exploitation, she said, tapping her pen against the legal pad. You were a minor when they opened that joint account. You've been making regular deposits for years. They've been withdrawing funds for personal expenses, spa treatments, entertainment without your consent. And the harassment campaign, especially the call to your employer, constitutes intentional infliction of emotional distress. Hope flickered in my chest. So you think we have a case? I think we have an excellent case. She paused. But I want to be upfront with you about costs. My hope dimmed immediately. I charge $350 an hour for this type of work, Lysandra continued. A case like this, with discovery, depositions, possibly going to trial, we're looking at $25,000 to $30,000 in legal fees. The number hit me like a physical blow. When thinking about the cost of hiring a lawyer, my heart sank. I only have over $20,000 in savings, I said hesitantly, my voice trembling with worry. If the lawsuit drags on, I won't have enough money to pay your hourly fees. The thought of giving up flashed through my mind. I would be bankrupt before reclaiming justice. All that money I'd saved, all those sacrifices, would be gone. And for what? My family would probably just declare bankruptcy anyway, and I'd be left with nothing. My family at this moment must be gloating. My silence after the HR incident and after blocking them at the door surely made them think I was scared, that I had been subdued. They thought I was the maid with no money and no guts to resist. The scared little girl who would eventually come crawling back, apologizing, begging to be let back into the family, who would put the money back in the joint account and resume her role as the help. That very overconfidence of theirs was the trap. If they thought I'd given up, they'd get sloppy. They'd keep posting on social media. They'd keep harassing me. They'd keep creating evidence. Uncle Silas placed his hand on my shoulder, reassuring me. Rowena and I have agreed to support you with $10,000. Don't worry about money right now. I turned to stare at him. Uncle Silas, I can't. You can, and you will, he said firmly. We've talked about it. We have the money set aside. This is what family does. Real family. Tears pricked my eyes. Attorney Lysandra looked at me, her smile gentle but her eyes flashing with sharp intelligence. I will charge a flat fee of $25,000 for everything, until the lawsuit concludes. And I believe we will get back much more than that. I blinked. A flat fee? Flat fee. No hourly billing, no surprises. $25,000 total, and that covers everything through judgment or settlement. She leaned forward. Heidi, I've been doing this for 25 years. I know when I have a winning case. Your family has documented their own wrongdoing. That video alone is worth its weight in gold. It shows their attitude toward you, their lack of respect, the exploitative dynamic. Combined with the financial records and the harassment campaign, we can pursue not just return of funds, but significant damages for emotional distress. How much are we talking about? I asked quietly. Conservatively, I'd estimate we could get a judgment of $100,000 to $150,000, possibly more if we go to trial and a jury sees that video. My breath caught. That was more than 5 times my savings. That was life-changing money. My hesitation vanished. My family thought I was cowering in fear because of the HR warning? Good. Let them think that. Let them continue to be arrogant, continue to leave traces, continue to think they had won. Because when they were most off guard, that was when Lysandra and I would strike. Okay, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. Let's do it. Lysandra smiled a predator's smile. Excellent. I'll need you to sign a retainer agreement, and I'll need you to do something else. What? Don't block your family anymore. Let them keep texting you. Let them keep leaving evidence. Don't respond, that's important, but don't block them. Every threatening text, every harassing call, every nasty social media post is another nail in their coffin. I thought about that. Thought about seeing their names pop up on my phone, reading their vicious words. I can do that, I said. Uncle Silas squeezed my shoulder. Lysandra pulled out a contract from her desk drawer. Then let's make this official. I read through the retainer agreement carefully. Flat fee, $25,000. Scope of representation, financial exploitation, conversion, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and any related claims. term, through final judgment or settlement. I nodded at Lysandra and signed my name at the bottom. The trap had been baited. They didn't know that their maid had just signed a contract with their nightmare. As we left Lysandra's office, Uncle Silas put his arm around me. You did the right thing. I hope so. I know so. Your aunt and I have watched your family treat you like dirt for years. We should have intervened sooner, but we're here now. That night, lying in bed in my apartment, I unblocked my family's numbers. Within minutes, the texts started coming in. Mom, your silence speaks volumes. You should be ashamed of yourself. Serafina, when you come crawling back, don't expect us to forgive you easily. Caspian, hope you're happy you ruined Christmas for everyone. Dad, a daughter who steals from her parents deserves nothing. I read each one carefully, screenshot each one, and filed them in a folder on my phone labeled Evidence. Then I set down my phone and smiled in the darkness. Let them talk. Let them threaten. Let them dig their own graves. Lysandra was right. They were handing me the case on a silver platter. Back in Lysandra's office, the air still smelled of leather and calculated justice as she laid out documents like a dealer at a blackjack table. Heidi, I want you to understand something, Lysandra said, tapping her Mont Blanc pen against the folder. We're not just filing a lawsuit, we're building a financial fortress around your future and letting them crash against it. I nodded, my hands folded in my lap. 3 days had passed since Aunt Rowena's house, since Uncle Silas had made that phone call. 3 days since I'd stopped being the family doormat and started being the plaintiff. 2 causes of action, Lysandra continued, sliding a stapled document toward me. Defamation of character because they publicly branded you a thief and a parasite. And tortious interference with employment because Caspian's little Instagram crusade was designed to destroy your professional reputation. The words looked stark on the page. Official. Real. What happens next? I asked. Lysandra's smile was sharp as a scalpel. Discovery. The beautiful, terrible phase where everyone has to show their cards. We request financial records, communications, evidence. And Heidi? She leaned forward. Your family is going to learn that transparency is not their friend. The discovery phase felt like watching a slow-motion car crash from a safe distance. Lysandra's paralegal filed subpoenas for bank records on the old joint account, the one I'd contributed $2,000 to every month, like clockwork. The one my family had treated like a community piggy bank for their whims. When the statements arrived, Lysandra spread them across her conference table like crime scene photos. Look at this, she said, running her finger down the deposit column. Month after month. Heidi Henderson. $2,000. Heidi Henderson. $2,000. She flipped to the withdrawal side. And here? Serafina Henderson. $1,200. Salon and boutique charges. Elara Henderson. $800. Country club membership. Caspian Henderson. $600. Electronics store. The numbers told the story I'd lived but never voiced. I was the engine. They were the passengers. They called you the parasite, Lysandra said quietly. But the math says otherwise. My throat tightened. Seeing it in black and white official bank letterhead, transaction codes, dates, made it undeniable. I hadn't been imagining things. I hadn't been dramatic or ungrateful. I'd been used. But the real explosion came from the asset investigation. Lysandra had hired a forensic accountant, a woman named Margaret who looked like somebody's grandmother but had the instincts of a bloodhound. She dug into property records, loan documents, credit reports. What she found made my father's Christmas Eve tantrum look like a minor inconvenience. Your father took out a second mortgage on the Henderson estate, Margaret explained during our meeting, her reading glasses perched on her nose. 14 months ago. Amount: $175,000. I blinked. A second mortgage? Why? According to the loan application, it was for business investment purposes. Margaret's tone was dry as desert sand. But when we cross-referenced with business registrations, tax filings, and corporate databases, we found nothing. No LLC, no partnership, no legitimate business entity. Lysandra leaned back in her chair. Translation: your father gambled on some scheme probably sold to him by a smooth-talking con artist and lost everything. Does my mother know? I asked. Margaret shook her head. The mortgage documents only required one signature because your father's name was primary on the title. He didn't need her permission. The house they'd been so proud of, the one they'd lorded over me like proof of their superiority, was drowning in debt. The marble countertops, the chandelier in the foyer, the manicured lawn, all of it was leveraged to the hilt. "They're underwater," Lysandra said, "and they don't even know it yet." 4 months after Christmas Eve, I walked into the county courthouse wearing a navy blazer and my most professional heels. The building was all cream-colored stone and echoing hallways, the kind of place where whispers carried and judgment was literal. My family didn't have money for fancy attorneys. The discovery phase had bled them dry, responding to subpoenas, scrambling to justify their spending, trying to explain away Caspian's social media posts. They'd consulted a few lawyers, but retainer fees started at $15,000, and their accounts were already scraped thin. So they represented themselves. I spotted them across the courtroom gallery. Thaddeus in a wrinkled suit that had fit him better 20 pounds ago, Alara clutching a knockoff leather portfolio, Serafina chewing gum with her arms crossed, Caspian scrolling on his phone until the bailiff told him to put it away. They looked diminished, smaller somehow. Lysandra sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert. She'd prepared me for this. Coached me through testimony, reviewed exhibits, explained courtroom procedure. But nothing fully prepared me for the moment the judge entered and everyone stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Moreno presiding. Judge Moreno was a woman in her late 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every excuse in the book and believed none of them. She settled into her chair and surveyed the room. Case number 2, 4CV 8831, Henderson versus Henderson, Henderson, and Henderson. Counsel, are we ready to proceed? Lysandra stood. "Ready for the plaintiff, Your Honor." My father lurched to his feet. "Ready for the defense, Your Honor." It began. Lysandra was surgical. She presented the bank statements first, walking the judge through my contributions versus their withdrawals. Then came the social media posts, screenshots of Caspian's Instagram stories calling me a greedy traitor and a family deserter, complete with laughing emojis and tags to my employer's official account. Tortious interference requires proof that the defendant intentionally disrupted the plaintiff's employment relationship, Lysandra explained. Mr. Caspian Henderson tagged Heidi's employer. He used her full name. He made allegations designed to damage her professional standing. That's textbook interference. Then came the defamation evidence. Text messages from Serafina calling me a lying thief in a group chat with extended family. A voicemail from Alara telling me I was ungrateful and disturbed. An email from Thaddeus to his brother, my Uncle Silas, claiming I'd stolen family funds and abandoned my responsibilities. Every word, preserved. Every insult, documented. When it was my father's turn to respond, he stood and immediately began to unravel. "Your Honor, this is ridiculous," Thaddeus said, his voice rising. "My daughter is making a mountain out of a molehill. We're a family. Families have disagreements. That doesn't mean—" "Mr. Henderson," Judge Moreno interrupted, "please address the specific allegations. Did you or did you not send this email?" She gestured to the exhibit on the screen, his message to Uncle Silas, dated December 26th. Thaddeus's face flushed. "I was upset. She left us on Christmas Eve. She embarrassed us in front of—" "Did you send the email, sir?" "Yes, but—" "And did you know the allegations in that email were false at the time you sent it?" His jaw worked. "I believed she'd taken money from the joint account without permission. An account she contributed $2,000 to monthly, while your family withdrew funds freely," Lysandra interjected smoothly. "An account she had every legal right to access." Thaddeus's composure cracked. "She was living under our roof, eating our food, using our utilities. That money was her contribution to the household." "Was there a written agreement stipulating that?" Judge Moreno asked. Silence. "Was your daughter ever prevented from accessing those funds before December 24th? More silence. "Mr. Henderson, I suggest you stick to facts rather than feelings." But Thaddeus couldn't. The narcissism that had ruled our household for decades, the absolute certainty that he was right, that he was owed, that his children existed to serve him, came roaring to the surface. "This is absurd," he shouted. "She's my daughter. I raised her. I fed her. And this is how she repays me? By dragging us to court like common criminals? Mr. Henderson. She's vindictive. She's always been difficult. Ever since she was a child, she's had this attitude, this entitlement. Mr. Henderson, you need to... I don't need to do anything, his voice echoed off the courtroom walls. I'm the victim here. She abandoned her family. She's the selfish one. The bailiff took a step forward. Judge Moreno's gavel came down hard. Mr. Henderson, you will control yourself, or you will be held in contempt. Do you understand? Thaddeus was breathing hard, his face a mottled red. Elara grabbed his arm, whispering frantically, but he shook her off. And that's when Lysandra played the ace. Your Honor, if I may, she said calmly, I'd like to introduce Exhibit F into evidence. She nodded to her paralegal, who queued up a video on the courtroom screen. It was 10 seconds long, filmed on an iPhone, vertical format, slightly shaky. The perspective was from above, looking down at a cream-colored tile floor. And there I was, on my hands and knees, scrubbing. Caspian's voice came through the speakers, amused and casual. Look at Cinderella. Guess she forgot the ball was cancelled. Laughter from off-screen Serafina, probably. Then the video ended. The courtroom was silent. This video was posted to Mr. Caspian Henderson's Instagram story on Christmas Eve, Lysandra said quietly. It was viewed by approximately 200 of his followers before being deleted. Fortunately, several individuals captured screenshots and recordings. Judge Moreno's expression didn't change, but her eyes were hard. And the context? The plaintiff had been made to clean the floor after her brother deliberately dropped a tray of dessert dishes. This was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of emotional abuse and exploitation documented by the plaintiff's testimony. Lysandra let that sink in. Then she continued. Heidi Henderson was not a daughter in that household, Your Honor. She was unpaid labor. She was a maid, a scapegoat, and a piggy bank. And when she finally stood up for herself, her family responded with a coordinated campaign of defamation and harassment. My father tried to sputter a response, but Judge Moreno held up a hand. I've heard enough. The verdict came 2 weeks later. I was at my desk at work when Lysandra called. I stepped into an empty conference room to take it. We won, she said simply. Complete victory. My knees went weak. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. The judge ruled their behavior was malicious and intentional. Defamation, proven. Tortious interference, proven. She awarded you $130,000 in compensatory damages for harm to your reputation and economic losses. $130,000. And, Lysandra continued, the court ordered them to pay your attorney fees as the prevailing party. That's an additional $25,000. I couldn't speak. Numbers like that didn't feel real. Heidi, are you there? I'm here, I whispered. I can't believe it. Believe it. Now comes the fun part, collection. My family didn't have cash. The judgment might as well have been $1 billion, they couldn't pay it. So Lysandra filed for a property lien. A legal claim against the Henderson estate that meant they couldn't sell or refinance without satisfying my judgment first. But the universe, it seemed, had a sense of timing. The bank, the one that held both the original mortgage and my father's secret second mortgage, initiated foreclosure proceedings. Thaddeus had missed 3 consecutive payments on the second mortgage, his phantom investment having produced exactly 0 returns. Faced with losing everything to the bank, my parents made the only choice they had left. They listed the house for sale. It sold in 6 weeks. The market was strong, the neighborhood desirable. $450,000. On a rainy Tuesday in April, I received a text from Lysandra. Title company closing is today at 2 p.m. Wiring instructions already submitted. You don't need to be there. I didn't want to be there, but part of me, the part that had scrubbed floors and swallowed insults and pretended to be grateful for burnt scraps, needed to know it was real. So I drove to the First American Title Company office and sat in my car across the street, watching through the rain-streaked windshield as my parents arrived. Thaddeus walked like a man going to his execution. Elara clutched his arm. Lysandra told me later what happened in that title company office. She'd gotten the details from the escrow officer, a woman named Brenda who apparently had no patience for financial nonsense. Brenda had pushed the settlement statement across the table to my father. The document was dense with numbers, legal descriptions, prorated taxes, here is the house sale amount, Brenda had said, her tone professional but cool. $450,000. Thaddeus's eyes had lit up. Even drowning in debt, he saw that number and calculated his escape. But Brenda's pen moved down the page, tapping each deduction line. Minus your original mortgage payoff, $200,000. Tap. Minus broker fees and commissions, $27,000. Tap. Minus transfer taxes and recording fees, $8,000. Thaddeus had nodded, doing the math in his head. Still over $200,000 left. Enough to start over, maybe buy a condo, rebuild. Brenda flipped to the next page. Additionally, there is a court-ordered lien filed by Heidi Henderson. We are legally required to wire transfer $130,000 directly to her account to satisfy the judgment. The color had drained from my father's face. And, Brenda continued, unmoved, the prevailing party attorney fees in the amount of $25,000. She'd let the silence stretch, then she'd pointed to the bottom line. Your net proceeds after all liens, fees, and payoffs, $60,000. Thaddeus had gone from beet red to ashen pale in the space of a heartbeat. His mouth opened and closed, no sound came out. Alara had started crying. Quiet, helpless tears. This can't be right, Thaddeus finally croaked. You must have made a mistake. Brenda had slid a calculator across the table. You're welcome to verify the math yourself, Mr. Henderson. But there was no mistake. The numbers were merciless and exact. $450,000, minus $200,000, minus $27,000, minus $8,000, minus $130,000, minus $25,000, $60,000. The house they'd been so proud of, the symbol of their success, the throne from which they'd ruled, reduced to $60,000 and a forwarding address at a budget motel. I was in the middle of a budget meeting when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Professional Heidi, the one who showed up on time and delivered clean reports, didn't check personal notifications during work hours. But when the meeting ended and I returned to my desk, I opened my banking app. The notification was simple, stark, beautiful. Wire transfer received, plus $155,000. Sender, First American Title Company. I stared at it for a full minute, watching the number just sit there. Permanent, real, mine. Around me, the office hummed with its usual energy, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, someone laughing at the coffee station. Normal sounds, normal day. Except I was holding a phone that displayed the dollar equivalent of my dignity, my boundaries, and 4 months of legal warfare. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just closed the app, took a breath, and went back to work. But that night, alone in my apartment with a mug of chamomile tea, I let myself smile. This wasn't money my parents had given me out of love or obligation. This wasn't an inheritance or a gift. This was restitution. This was justice with a dollar sign attached. They'd tried to break me, and instead, they'd funded my freedom. The next morning, I drove to Aunt Rowena and Uncle Silas's house. The wisteria was blooming along their fence, purple cascades that smelled like spring and second chances. Rowena answered the door in her gardening apron, dirt smudged on her cheek. Heidi, I wasn't expecting you today. Come in, come in. Uncle Silas was in the kitchen, assembling a sandwich with the focused precision of an engineer. He looked up when I entered and gave me one of his quiet smiles. She's got that look, he said to Rowena. The look that means something important happened. I sat at their kitchen table, the same one where I'd cried and confessed, and plotted my escape 4 months ago. But this time, I wasn't running toward them for shelter. I was walking toward them as an equal. I pulled an envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. What's this? Rowena asked, wiping her hands on a dish towel. $10,000, I said simply. The loan you gave me, plus an extra $200 for interest, even though you said you didn't want it. Uncle Silas opened the envelope and saw the cashier's check. His eyebrows rose. Heidi, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. My voice was steady. Certain. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You gave me the tools to fight back. This isn't just repayment, it's gratitude. Rowena's eyes got shiny. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We're proud of you, sweetheart. So proud." Lysandra said you were the easiest client she'd ever had, Silas added. "Organized, honest, determined. You did the work, Heidi. We just pointed you in the right direction." I stayed for lunch. We didn't talk about the lawsuit or my family's implosion. Instead, we talked about normal things. Rowena's garden plans, Silas's upcoming retirement, my ideas for maybe taking a weekend trip somewhere I'd never been. It felt good, clean. Like a chapter closing and a new one beginning without fanfare or drama. Just life, moving forward. 12 months have passed since the gavel fell and the dust settled. I'm sitting in my studio apartment, my own place, purchased with a mortgage I qualified for, all by myself, holding a mug of hot cocoa. The steam curls up toward the ceiling, and outside my window, the city is dressed in December lights. It's not a mansion. It's 500 square feet with a galley kitchen and a bathroom the size of a closet, but every inch of it is mine. The walls are painted a soft gray I chose. The bookshelf holds my favorites, organized by genre, not shoved into whatever space was left after everyone else claimed the good shelves. The bed is made with flannel sheets I bought on sale, and nobody's going to mess them up or demand I wash theirs first. I don't eat leftovers unless I want to. I don't serve anyone but myself. I don't calculate how much of my paycheck needs to disappear into a joint account for people who see me as an ATM with legs. The settlement money, $155,000, sits in a high-yield savings account, slowly growing interest. I use some of it for the down payment on this place. The rest is my safety net, my emergency fund, my screw-you money if I ever need it. I have a retirement account now. I have a budget that actually works. I have a therapist I see twice a month who's helping me unpack 26 years of being told my needs didn't matter. I'm learning what it feels like to be enough, just as I am. Tomorrow, I'm having lunch with Aunt Rowena. She called last week, her voice warm and conspiratorial. "I'm making glazed ham and pecan pie. You should come over. We'll make it a proper celebration." "Celebration of what?" I'd asked. "Of you, sweetheart. 1 year of freedom. That's worth celebrating." So tomorrow, I'll drive to her house and sit at that kitchen table again. I'll eat food made with love instead of obligation. And when Aunt Rowena serves the pecan pie, the same dessert I once scraped off a floor while my brother filmed and laughed, I'll add a scoop of cold vanilla ice cream. Not because someone told me I could have it. Because I want it, and I'll enjoy every single bite. I don't keep tabs on my family anymore. I blocked their numbers, muted their names on social media, and built a wall between their chaos and my peace. But information has a way of seeping through. I heard from a cousin that Thaddeus is living in a budget motel off the highway, working the night shift as a janitor at a storage facility. Apparently, he tried to reconnect with extended family, posting long, rambling messages on Facebook about how he'd been betrayed and abandoned, but most people just blocked him. Nobody wants to be the next target of his blame spiral. Alara filed for divorce 6 months after the house sale. She's living in a subsidized apartment, collecting what little social welfare she qualifies for. I heard she tried to reach out to me through a mutual acquaintance, wanting to talk and explain, but I declined. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Serafina and Caspian drifted away to different cities. No forwarding addresses, no updates. They cut contact with everyone, including each other. I suppose when the money runs out and the audience gets bored, there's not much left to hold on to. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel vindicated either, not in the chest-thumping, triumphant way. Mostly, I feel free. Free from the weight of their expectations. Free from the script that said I had to endure abuse because we shared DNA. Free from the lie that staying silent was the same as being kind. I set down my mug of cocoa and walked to the window. The city lights blur into soft halos, and somewhere out there, people are living their lives, complicated, messy, beautiful lives. I think about the girl I was a year ago. The one who scrubbed floors and swallowed insults. The one who believed that being useful meant being loved. She's still part of me. But she's not all of me anymore. Now, I'm the woman who fought back, who hired a lawyer and gathered evidence and sat in a courtroom and won, who took the money that was legally, rightfully mine, and built something new. I'm the woman who learned that silence isn't always golden. Sometimes, it's just submission in disguise. And when you finally find your voice, when you use it to testify, to advocate, To defend yourself, that's when the real power comes. They thought I was the help because I stayed quiet. They didn't know I was just saving my voice for the testimony that would end them. I smile at my reflection in the window. Tomorrow, there will be glazed ham and pecan pie. And I will eat it all, with cold vanilla ice cream melting into every perfect bite, because I'm not anyone's maid anymore. I'm just Heidi. And that, finally, is enough.